Hello, this is Gareth from the iMoot team. It is my great pleasure to introduce Martin Dougiamas, who's going to present about all the improvements in Moodle 2.7. Thank you very much for your time this morning and the slides. I'm looking forward to a superb presentation. Thank you.
Let's see. There we go. Yes, sorry. Thanks, Gareth, I think that was. I am Martin Dougiamas, and, well, we are all here. And if you're not here, then you're here in some other sense in the future, watching this on a stream or something or somewhere else. I didn't come up with this intergalactic business. That might have been Wendy, but one of the organisers. But I think we're all here in the galaxy, that's for sure. So hello everyone, and I just sort of dropped in a couple of times to sessions so far because I've been really busy, unfortunately, and I haven't hardly caught anything. So I feel really bad about that because I would love nothing more than to just sit down and do a marathon all weekend with some of you who have been doing that. My intention is to catch up a bit later with the videos a couple at a time and do it that way. But let me share something on the screen. And go, getting your sharing up. Okay, maybe it wasn't Wendy, but that's where I heard about it from, so I'm blaming her. Sorry, I got to do some region sharing, drawing the box, and okay. So let me know when you can start seeing the screen. I'm not going to be able to see much of you on the chat, but I'm watching Twitter on the side. So I guess keep it in the stream and we'll see it there. Seeing things okay? Yep, good. All right. Actually, I will put that in the background somehow. There we go. So, yeah, that's where we are, just for a bit of context. Let's zoom in somewhat and talk about some recent developments. 2.7 was written on the tin, so let me start with that. As you know, we got another standard timed release out. And I'm going to close my video actually just to improve the bandwidth here. Just do that. There we go. The release came out on schedule in May, and it's a pretty good release. So everyone involved felt good about it, that we got it together in good time. It didn't have all the features in it that were planned, but we stopped working on them like months ago. To focus on the things that were going in to make sure they were well polished, well tested, and so I think the overall quality of this release is the highest we've ever had yet. And that's one reason why it's a long-term support release, but I'll talk more about that later. There was about 104 developers involved in the release. That's just the people that we know about. Some of those are represent a number of people. There'll be a team somewhere and one person submitting code, but that's still a good number, and there's 583 issues resolved, which is quite a lot when you really think about it, even just how many per day we're getting resolved. So lots of stuff going on in this release. So what's in there? I'm going to go through the main features and talk about them a bit. Maybe there's some things you haven't already heard from the various release notes and things. So first of all is AtHome. Now this was an interesting one. The old editor we were using, TinyMCE, was we had to ditch because they stopped supporting it. So we had to choose what the next editor would be, or commit to maintaining this old editor and all its many problems that we knew it had for a long time in the future. So after quite a lot of talk and discussion and research, we ended up choosing not to go with TinyMCE4, which would have involved a lot of development anyway, and would have not been backward compatible with third-party plugins. Everyone would have had to do a lot of work anyway. We chose not to go for CK Editor and some other editors which we tried because they had some of the same problems as TinyMCE, which is not very good, not full integration with Moodle. And so we're always doing little hacks and workarounds trying to make it fit into the Moodle experience. And it so happened we had an in-house editor already being started by Damien Weiss in his own time. He'd been developing this new little editor, and its main features are that it's fully integrated into Moodle properly, as you know, all the buttons are individual plugins, for example. And this full integration really means that we can fix any problems that come along quite easily. We don't have to work with the upstream. We can deal with problems that involve HTML, CSS, PHP, all at the same time. And this full control of the stack means that we can give people a really good experience with Moodle. And because the editor is actually where you spend most of your time, whether you're writing on forums or even you know, the content, through all the activities, you're in editors usually. It's really important to get it right. And so even though it's a bit more work in the short term and the long term, I finally decided to commit to it, so we've done it. And I'm really happy with the result. I'm actually really pleased. I think it was the best decision. Already AtHome's looking really more capable than other editors, and it's only going to grow from here. People seem to be enjoying writing new plugins for it, and we can have some really cool stuff in the future. One of the things coming very soon, for example, is being able to drag and drop images straight from your desktop into the HTML text and see them immediately, and it's just all transparent. Drag the image in and save. Someone's already written that as a plugin, so it was able to be done that way because of this structure, and you would never do that with any third-party editor. So that actual feature is not in 2.7 just at this moment, but it is on the plugins database, and you can install it, and we will put it into core later. It just wasn't quite ready, but anyway, just as an example. One of the things that AtHome has is that we've worked on and was critical for me to make sure that AtHome had mathematics support. And here was another problem. With TinyMCE, the only mathematics editor we had was DragMath, which uses Java. And it was pretty capable. It was a nice system, a bit old maybe, but the problem is it's Java, and Java doesn't run on touchscreens. It doesn't run on computers by default. You need to install Java, and it had a lot of problems. So in AtHome, we were able to make a simple editor, more of a proof of concept here, that lets you edit equations just using this editor, which is HTML and JavaScript, which works everywhere. It works on touch screens. It's very light, very configurable. You can change all the buttons and things in it, and it's great. It actually should be good enough for 90% of people out of the box, which is the aim, and it can be configured more. And I'm sure the maths community will work on it over time to make it even more capable. So I can demo that a little bit shortly. What else we got? Oh, actually, sorry, before I leave that, there's improved display as well. And we've actually got a new MathJax plugin for displaying math. So actually what I'm going to do now is switch to, and I might as well show this. So I hope you're seeing an orangey Moodle site with a telescope guy at the top. For me, the preview in Big Blue Button is severely lagged, so it's hopefully better for you than my preview. Good, thanks. So I'll just pop into this empty course, into a news forum, and I'll try not to go too fast. I just wanted to get to typical old forum post. Typing in my usual text. So this is the AtHome editor. All these buttons are configurable. You can turn them on and off. There are some new things in here, like there's an accessibility checker, which will check for more and more things over time. One of the focus of this editor is to make it accessible, both for using it, if you are blind or unable to see the screen for some reason, but also to make it the content that you make with it accessible. And so there's we now have this platform where we can continue to improve that over time and make it the most accessible editor possible. There's also a screen reader helper which helps you understand, not with this text, but with more substantial text, what screen readers might be needing and seeing. But I was getting onto the math editor, so here we are, it pops up, and you can see a number of equations. You can just type things in, but there's also buttons. So say I just want a simple triple integral, because that is so simple. And I can type stuff in here. Down the bottom here, I'm getting a preview. So this is tech code, which if you're into maths, you'll be familiar with. It's what Moodle's supported for a very long time. And what you're actually doing here is building up these tech notation for the equation, and the preview's at the bottom. And the buttons just make it easier to insert the things you need. So I'll save this equation. Now, at the moment, we're just seeing the tech code in there. Soon, the plan is to make that an actual preview in the editor so that you can see it live as a true WYSIWYG. But at the moment, it's just like we've always had it. You see the code written in there, and that gets rendered by the filter. So you can actually continue using the old filter, which uses tech on the back end, but this new filter is MathJax. Lets you do cool stuff. This, I've just hovered over the equation and I'm seeing it expanded, zoomed in, and if I right click on it, you'll see there's a whole menu here from MathJax that lets you customize that as a user, when you see those things, how much of the zoom is by percentage. You can choose to make it, to render it as HTML, CSS, or if your browser supports it, it can convert that tech to MathML, and it will be displayed as a MathML or as SVG. So I've chosen SVG. This is now an SVG rendered here. And so you have a lot more flexibility for the whole rendering process and for math. So that's a lot cleaner now. And the really good thing about it is all of this works out of the box. There's nothing required to be done on the server end anymore. You can actually just run any Moodle anywhere, and this just works. So enough about the math there. What's next? Conditional activities was improved. Stan Marshall at Open University did the bulk of the work on this, and it's a huge improvement over what we had before for conditional activities. There now supports Boolean logic, so you can say this particular activity is only accessible when something else happens or something else happens, or you can use ands. You can combine as many as you like together. You can build quite complex structures. Some people like this stuff for gamification. Some people like it just to control the progress of students. And you can also use it to hide and show optional activities to different people, etc. It works really well. It's quite cool. So that's that. Another big decision we made was to make clean the default theme, and clean is the most basic theme based on the Bootstrap framework, which is a responsive framework where we've had Bootstrap in Moodle since Moodle 2.5, but it's had a lot of tweaks and small changes, tidy ups. It's looking really good now, and it works well as the default theme. So out of the box, it comes up looking like this. It's also an example for themers. So if you want to make your own theme, we advise you usually copy this theme, the clean theme, and rename a couple of things in it and start building on top of that. And that way you'll take advantage of the whole Bootstrap framework, and any improvements to the Bootstrap framework will just automatically work on your theme as well. And being responsive, of course, it means it works across platforms, and making things work on mobile is really a big thing. We also added one more theme, and this is the more theme. The name is not my fault. It's one of our developers, Fred. I basically said, look, you're doing all the work on it, you give it a name. And he called it more because it uses internally something called less, and less is more. So there's the inside story for that. Anyway, it's clean plus some stuff. It has simple customization. You can do colors, some backgrounds, and it'll probably evolve in time with a few more settings. But the idea is that if you just really quickly need to make your Moodle site look like something to match some other site, or there's a lot of admins out there who don't want to mess around with making themes. You can actually get quite a long way with this theme. And the demo site I was showing you, this one, is in fact done with the more theme. So what you can see is in the background, maybe you can't see with the scrolling speed of this sharing, but you see those circles there in the background? They're static. So you can specify a background, you can make it static or repeated or all the same sorts of things you can do on your desktop. And just by having one big image, you can actually change the look of the design significantly. You also notice I've made some of these blocks on the side a little bit transparent, which just gives it a little bit more sort of depth and the variation. I've stuck an image here of a guy with a telescope at the top. That's just a logo at the top there. It can be any logo you like, any picture you like. And you can change colors and things obviously as well. So all of that looks like this, buried in the rather deep menus for appearance. So that looks like this. So what I find it useful for is, because I have a lot of Moodle sites for this and that, and it's not all so important that they have great themes, but I can just really quickly throw an image in, change a couple of colors, and just make it distinct. And it's really usable. And I've noticed even around the office at Moodle HQ that all the development sites have suddenly blossomed colors. Dan said, my site's all pink. I wonder if that says something about me. For example, and it's just a bit more variation. So it's keeping it all just a little bit more interesting in the office as well. But I think it's just going to be useful, especially for smaller sites, people running Moodle in a small way, that they can just quickly make it look how they want out of the box. So I'm glad we've got that in. For the more technical among you, there is a quite funky thing going on with the more theme, in that it is using less internally. It's actually compiling its own less into CSS, and there is a less compiler built into it. We don't recommend you do this with your own themes generally. Really, if you're going to be building a complex theme, you'll probably have your own less tools, and you'll be doing that stuff on the command line or using your application on your desktop to do that. But you could. It's an example of how to do it if you need to do it. Assignment had a lot of improvements, little things. So online texts have word limits, which was a big feature request, and it can be graded in line again properly, which disappeared from the old assignment. There's a better submissions view with filtering, so you can see students at different stages. You can control the notifications going out to students, and there's more refined teacher permissions. Bunch of little things in assignment. The quiz has also got a bunch of little things. There's improved question editing, improved reports, and a number of other small things. I'm going to be here all day if I go into them. Now, one of the big features from my point of view was events and logging, and I've been talking about this for good year and a half or so, but finally we've got it into Moodle. And the purpose of revamping the way we do events and logging is to build Moodle into more of an analytics platform. And when I talk about analytics, I'm mostly talking about the computer doing the work of analysing data in order to help the teachers and the students. So giving us information about what's happening inside the Moodle site live, if need be, or at least very soon, so that we are informed about what's going on. As a teacher, we should be informed about the class, where everyone's at, what's going on, what the exceptions are. And as a student, you need to be informed also about what's happening in the class, and so on. Now, to get those kind of features, we needed to improve how we do logging and events. And that turned into a much bigger project than anticipated. It was meant to be in 2.6, but spilled over into 2.7. And what we have now, though, is a framework where events are happening when people make actions, and those are one-to-one correspondent with what goes into the logs. So now all of those events are logged. And the logs don't have to be in Moodle. They can be external systems. So on very big sites, using clusters and so on, these logs can be streaming into a very fast external database and not slowing down the Moodle system. So that's useful just to keep logs, but it also means we have more logs that we can do reports on, and that's where things start getting really interesting. There is a new admin tool in Moodle, sorry, it's a report, an admin report, that lists for you all the events that have been triggered. And here's some, maybe you can't quite read that, but there's like a blog association created, comment created, calendar event created, cohort created, and so on. As Moodle grows, this list will grow, and there's already hundreds. But this report gives you the details on what all these events mean, and by extension, what each log entry means, what is being logged. And I'll talk more about how we're fleshing that out in the future in 2.8. But this forms the foundation of good data collection, so let's just do cool stuff with it. One of the cool stuff, one of the cool things that I would like to do with analytics eventually is to have notifications of analytics. And we now have a notifications framework built into Moodle. It's now working. Actually, 2.6 has it too. 2.7 has a few extensions, but basically both of these systems can now talk to an air notifier server or something else like it. And this is a piece of open source software that you can find on GitHub. It was made by one of our Moodle developers from a couple of years ago. What it does is accepts messages from the Moodle site and sends them off to Apple and Google, which then forward them onto your phone. And they appear inside your Moodle mobile application. Here's a screenshot. It's not terrific, but you can see the notification. This notification is coming in live via these very large .com messaging frameworks, which is cool. Finally, we have this loop, and we can close that. We're able to build feedback loops on that. Moodle can now reach out and tell us things, and we can then react to that. So now it's all about making the app ever more usable, ever more powerful, so that we can really close that loop up. If you want to try this out now, you can on Moodle.org. If you go to Moodle.org, actually first, if you get the Moodle mobile app and connect it to Moodle.org using your Moodle.org account, that will register your device with Moodle.org. And then in your messages settings, there you can say send some messages. You can pick which ones straight to your device. and that'll work. And I've been getting live notifications of forum posts in some themes for a while. So it's working quite well. Now we've just got to improve the interfaces a bit. Hopefully my presentation is still coming through okay. See you, Lindy. Is everyone else, can you hear me okay still? Just, okay, good. I'll try not to be choppy. Okay. If it gets bad, then maybe I should reconnect or something. Just let me know, one of the organisers perhaps. Okay. All right. Next thing I wanted to talk about. I'm sorry about the sound quality if that's annoying you. I know it is annoying listening to bad sound. Another change in 2.7 is the scheduled tasks. Mostly useful for administrators, but very useful for them in that we can now control what happens in the background with some precision. So with Moodle 2.7 now, you should change your cron task to be every minute. In the past, we've always said every 15 minutes or 20 minutes, but now you should make it every minute. And Moodle will handle all the load. It will spread out tasks and hold things and make sure everything happens properly. It's a whole new system. You can now say, I want this task to happen at 3:30 in the morning when no one's on, and it'll happen at that time. So some pretty cool stuff there, and it especially works well for large sites with many front-end machines in cluster. So we now have a proper cron system. And probably the last big thing I want to talk about in 2.7 is the long-term support. In the past, we've mostly had 18-month cycles of security fixes, and well, since Moodle 1.9 anyway. And it's about time, and a lot of people have been asking, you know, when are we going to have another release that has longer support? Well, this is the one. Moodle 2.7 will have 3 years of support, so we'll be committing to fixing security problems and data loss type issues for 3 years, which is quite a lot of work on our part, but I think it does make Moodle another 2.7 a platform that you might want to build on. And if you are still stuck on an old version of Moodle and you've been contemplating the upgrade, but it seems like a lot of work, testing and so on, then this is probably the time. I think it's worth getting onto this platform. Of course, I would love you to always be using our latest version, but I know that's the upgrades for a large university, say, can be significant work. It's yeah, this is the point of this release. Well, Guido, we did change the PHP requirements. It's not exactly a new version of PHP. It's still a couple of years old. What's required. So I think if that's a problem for you, then you could just upgrade PHP, and you probably should, because I think the old versions are not even supported either. Well, if you're on a cheap host, you know, I hate to say it's time to change hosts, but many hosts actually will offer new versions of PHP if you ask them. So definitely ask them and say, you know, please get us onto something from the last couple of years, because all they need is a bit of pressure to do it. It's not exactly a massive upgrade. Yeah. Dorothy, you're asking about non-core plugins to catch up. There are there shouldn't be very many things that are incompatible. There's no really major changes from 2.6 to 2.7 that break plugins that I know of. We haven't deliberately broken much at all, if anything. So compatibility is quite good from 2.6 to 2.7. So anyone who's been upgrading their plugins in the last while, then it should be okay. Are you saying there's some actually broken, Dorothy? Progress bar and feedback are not working? Feedback is in Moodle, so that's in core anyway. And progress bar should work. I'm certain it does. If not, the author is actually in our office, so he should fix it quick. If it isn't already. But in general, I found everything very compatible. I've upgraded all my sites and I use a bunch of things, and I had no problems with anything yet. Should be minor things. So, I mean, yeah, even if they're not working, they'll be working in such easy to fix ways that I'm sure developers will be fixing them quite soon. So just tell the developers, they might not even know. Great, so that's that. So let's talk about the future. Where is Moodle going in the future? Well, let me talk about things from my perspective, as usual, as only. I show this slide occasionally, but I really want to be clear, and I need to reiterate this point, that Moodle loves teachers, that the point of Moodle is to provide tools that support teachers, that empower teachers to do their job, to let them educate, to corral, to facilitate, to enable students and do what they're good at. And we can obviously improve this forever. We have a long roadmap and things we can make better and better in this part. I want to add one more thing to this, which is that Moodle loves geeks. And the thing about Moodle is because it's open source and that it allows people to engage with it on all sorts of interesting levels, writing code, documentation, and so on. But I think we go out of our way to, in fact, encourage this. And the real future is to make Moodle a platform that geeks can make into the best platform. So to answer your question, Guido, the geeks and the teachers are the ones responsible for students. It's their responsibility. They're the ones who have a job to be a teacher, to be a developer, to be looking after students. Of course, we want the feedback to make Moodle support students as well as possible out of the box. But unlike some other educational platforms, I don't see it Moodle's job to take over teaching students directly. Right? We are just providing the platform to encourage the ecosystem of teaching. Otherwise, we could just stop all this now and go off and develop a new app that just, students download and we just send them stuff and talk to them directly, and we just call it Moodle University or something like that. I'm not interested in that. Moodle's about this platform, and because of the platform, it's able to get into niches in the education field and be the best possible tool, a tool that no one-size-fits-all thing could ever be. And I think, as you can probably see from the range of even the discussions at iMoot and just in general, you can see how many different ways Moodle is used in such a variety of ways. That's the strength of Moodle, and that's something I think we need to focus on and continue to work on. So I have this mission which really informs the direction of Moodle, the things that I try and get Moodle HQ working on. That Moodle's about supporting teachers with their teaching. It's about supporting learners with their learning through teachers. It's about integrating everything needed for a course. It should be open in every way, but sites can be fully private. And in a world where our data is more and more being siphoned off into places that we don't know, I think it's important for us to remember the internet is a place where we can control data. It's just we've chosen not to. And with open source, we can do that. It's important for everyone to be able to use Moodle easily for free. You should never have to download to pay for an app to access it. Students shouldn't have to be paying for to access it on any device. It should be a very flexible tool set. It should be a platform on which you can build, take things out, put things in, and make it exactly what it's needed to be. Scaling is important. You notice in 2.7 and 2.6 we already had a lot of features for scaling Moodle. You can use Moodle to run a MOOC, no problem. Lots of people are demonstrating that, and there is a new one starting actually based on our Learn MOOC from last year, being run by our Italian Moodle partner, and it's an Italian Learn Moodle MOOC. So if you speak Italian, look out for that one. And lastly, for the geeks, it allows anyone to contribute to global education. If you build onto Moodle, you are building for a lot of people who are using Moodle, if you choose to share it, of course. If you want to share that, you have a lot of people who can use it and help give you feedback. And it's just a lot more interesting to work on something that's a bigger project than a smaller one. Nadav says, what about preparing it for cloud infrastructure? Well, we don't need to do that. That's already being done. It's already done. There's Moodle already has a lot of work done to make it work on clusters. Personally, I wouldn't be hosting on Google or Amazon. I'd be hosting it on my own data center, because you can build your own cloud now, and it's just almost as easy. Guido's, any size equals very small? Absolutely, and there's still lots of people using Moodle with one student, homeschooling or very small Moodle sites. I've got a bunch of them myself, and it's quite an interesting process when you install Moodle and just cut it back to the exact thing needed. You just cut it down to the few tools you need, and it's sort of an interesting sculpturing process where you just sort of like starting with a block of clay and just getting it down to the minimum. I find that interesting every time I do it, because there's always one more thing you can remove, right? Right. So let's get on. That's the mission. Now, these are the areas where we're focusing on in the future, and they break into 5 main areas. The first one up here, not necessarily first, but on the slide, is analytics and feedback. We've already talked about analytics a bit, logs and notifications. It's about closing the feedback loop. It's about teachers knowing what's going on in their course immediately so that they can actually get in there and make an impact. If you know there's something interesting happening on a forum straight away, and you jump in there and throw a post in that captures the moment or summarizes it or builds on it, it keeps things hot. And while that idea is in everyone's minds, it's active, it's evolving, and so it's successful. It's the same for all participants, for students, for admins. Admins need to know about if there's a lot of people jumping on quizzes, say, they probably want to know. They may have admin tools for that already, but there's no reason why Moodle can't be doing those communications too. So it's all about communicating. Jump across to the top right there, management. Something we don't do very well in Moodle yet is the management of learning. We are a course management system, have been historically, but we need to take it up to more of a learner management system, a true LMS, to be covering outcomes and competencies in a proper way. Those should be connected to learning plans so that you can have a full plan for a person, that these are the things they know, these are the things they want to know, and what are the courses they're going to take and the activities they need to do to get them there. There's a lot of people who have done learning plans in various ways on top of Moodle, but we have nothing in core. And so one of our jobs is to make that a very deep part of Moodle core. Workflow is another thing. In many organizations, if you're going to be thinking about learning plans and maybe you have a management structure, so workplace learning, for example, you may have a manager who is your direct manager who's also responsible for your learning plan. You need to have some workflow in there. Someone needs to decide what's going to be done. Other people need to agree to it. And that whole learning process outside of the actual learning itself is the workflow, and that needs to be in there. And lastly, reporting. A lot of people have built reporting solutions onto Moodle. We don't have really good reports yet in core that I'd like to see so much more in there, and so that's an area that we're working on too. In Moodle, Moodle is a platform, so regardless of what's in core or what's not, we need to focus on making it a better and better platform to build on. We have the Moodle plugins database that's been evolving, and more about that soon. General support, how do we support people using Moodle in all ways, from ways that are free to ways that are paid, and just the general usability of the whole thing, how it connects on a mobile platform, how it works at all stages of the process, from getting into a Moodle site to building that Moodle site, and ongoing things. Over here on the bottom left, open content. Open content is something that's always been floating around in the Moodle world. We have Moodle.net as a place for sharing open content, but it's not as well integrated with the whole system as it could be. In fact, I think a lot of people don't even know about Moodle.net because we haven't really advertised it in the past. We are doing so now with the new websites, but we really want to work on that to make it a real place where people can share things easily, and easily is the key thing there. It should be really drag and drop in and out of your Moodle course. So you drag activities into your Moodle course when you're building. And if you want to share one, that's good too. We also need to work on business models here. Not a lot of people can afford to share their content because it's protected, their institution owns it, or they're too shy, or for whatever reason, teachers are not keen on sharing their main work, as they see it, for creating courses and content. But the beauty of open content is it only takes one person to make content, and then 1 million people can share it. So we've talked about some crowdfunding models where we would get crowdfunding around a particular project. Let's say building a sequence of language courses, let's say French. So you want to have Moodle French courses that are open and available for all French teachers to use, and they might be organized by levels, level 1, level 2, level A, level B, whatever. The content in there is best practice, and it's created by people explicitly to be open, to be open content. But the people creating it shouldn't have to do it for free. Let's find some way to pay those people. And we could have a whole ecosystem here of people creating open content in the Moodle format, and I'd love to see that. So that's some projects we've got going. Lastly, access. It's not last, it's just on this slide. We need to improve how access goes all the way around. You should be able to use Moodle on a mobile platform almost as easily as on a desktop. You should be able to use Moodle, like all the functions of Moodle, if you can't see it, if you're blind or have other disabilities. Lastly, it should work offline too, as much as possible. Even though we have internet spreading, we also have offline internet spreading as well. And it's still the case that data roaming is usually too expensive, and I keep my phone turned off. We need things to be offline as much as possible, and that's what the app is for. And the app is a very good platform. Our current app is a good platform for building these features onto it, and we intend to be in the future. So these are the 5 main areas I see of work. So let me talk about a few things. I already showed some of them when we talked about them. So Moodle.org, you notice this year we finally got our new theme and new structure up for it. I hope you think it's a big improvement. I do. But it's about making the Moodle open community site a more friendly place for people of all languages and all cultures to come to support each other for free using Moodle. We spent quite a lot of time getting it right. I don't think it stops. We'll keep doing that. But you'll see all the other sub-sites evolving over time and becoming more integrated as a place where we can all talk about Moodle and share all this work. So that's important, I think, for the platform. The Moodle plugins area has had some work, but it's been a little slow just recently. However, that's going to change because as of last week, we have a new plugins person. Actually, the name of the position is a plugins liaison. David Mudrak is going to be doing this full time now, and he wasn't before at all, so he's stepping into this position. And he's going to be working on a number of things here. He's going to be improving the plugins database for one, for developers and for users. He'll also be working with plugin developers. He'll be like the conduit communicating things from Moodle HQ that plugin developers need to know. He'll be passing them along and working on systems for spreading that information. And secondly, he'll be helping to collect the concerns of plugin developers and feeding that back to Moodle HQ and to core so that we can work both ways. So that's why he's the plugins liaison. I don't know if he'll be having any dangerous liaisons in there, but perhaps. There's a lot of things we can do in here as well. One of the things is that we may also look at some sort of crowdfunding model in here as well, to make it easy for developers to say, look, I'd like to build on this plugin, but I can't afford to. All I need is a few $1,000s, and I could add this feature and that feature. A bit of a Kickstarter thing, but just in the Moodle world. Narissa, how many people are at Moodle HQ? It's about 30 at the moment, which is really not enough. But we're all working hard trying to cover all the bases. But yeah, that's how many we are. The other is the mobile app. It's now currently on Android and iOS. Firefox OS is coming very soon. And I'd like to announce here now that also Windows Mobile will be supported reasonably soon as well. So it's going to be very cross-platform. And that's the beauty of this being an HTML-based app, is that we can develop for all these platforms quite cheaply and keep them all the same. If you've got Pup and Browser, Dorothy, you would probably just use Moodle itself. You wouldn't need the app so much. These are more operating systems. So yeah, mostly phone and tablets. Another thing we've been working on for some time is the Moodle Research Conference, and sadly the one this year that was planned in Long Beach did not go ahead because we didn't get enough papers submitted, and I think that's largely a problem with the paper process. So it's sad because I was really looking forward to that. But we will be having another one soon. And if you look in Moodle on the Moodle Research website, you'll already see hundreds of papers that we've already got collected about Moodle. And this is a really important initiative that the future developments we do should be based on research. And I don't mean just only case studies. I mean proper research. Well, okay, that sounded awful, but I mean research that really looks hard at Moodle usage in a way that's as objective as possible, and those will that will guide our development in the future. Some of the research questions, just a few things that I would have is this sort of thing, right? What activities work well for learning in this case? What are the ethical concerns, such as privacy? How do we know when a student needs assistance from a teacher, assuming they're not actually going to tell us, so that we can notify a teacher to intervene, etc. How best can we use badges to motivate and inform? So, it's easy to make badges in Moodle, but is that helping the learning? There is actually some research that says that too much extrinsic motivation actually damages the learning process, that you will damage the intrinsic motivation of learning that subject. And so you have to use them sparingly and you have to use them appropriately. So how do we know what that is? How do we really, understand all that stuff? So we need to really think about these things, and we need to study how it's actually working, not just how we think it's working, etc., etc. There's a lot more questions we could ask here. Here's some examples of some really just hardcore A/B testing ideas for Moodle we could do. These are some. This came out of a workshop from the last research conference in Tunisia last year, and so, for example, we could do these on a large scale, looking at learning over a long time. So, comparing how much people have learned after 6 months. Right, 6 months after the course finished, how much do they still remember? How much do they really learn of that stuff? And look at the data of what sort of person they were or how the course was set up. So, is it better to have all the activities open from the start, or is it better to use controlled release of activities? We don't know, and we don't know when it is and when it isn't. Is it better to have repeating patterns per week or no patterns? Is it better to have courses with just videos and quizzes, like most MOOCs, or to use many Moodle activities? Is it better to, what's a better indicator of success in a course? Is it, if you're an initiator of forum posts versus the people who just reply versus the people who are lurkers? What's an indication of success do we get from people who use the website frequently versus not frequently? Is it better to have some synchronous activities or no synchronous activities? Is it better to have student-created activities versus just teacher-created activities? I'm sure for some of these things we all have a feeling about what it might be, but there's not really any good data out there, and it's something the Moodle community could do. And once we study that, if we come to any real solid answers about that stuff, we can build it into the tools. Moodle itself can be can be recommending and shaping the teacher's activities through the interface, and it can be making suggestions about what to add here, what to add there, what not to do, etc. And I was talking with Michelle Moore recently, and she had a presentation earlier. I didn't see it, but I think she was talking about these ideas we were talking about, with the sort of the wizard type ideas, having a block that actually studied your course and gave you suggestions, and it can be based on this kind of knowledge once we find it. So if any of this kind of stuff sounds interesting, you should be there, research.moodle.net. That's the place to be, and there's quite a lot of ideas. We really need to build that up. It all takes time, but this is really where we have to be. So based on all that, I got a bit of time left to talk about Moodle 2.8. So let me talk about some of these plans that we are working on now. We are in the specification stage for 2.8. So in Moodle HQ at least, the developers have about a month spending on research, gathering information, putting together specs, discussing, etc. Some of this stuff will be hitting Moodle.org quite soon. You'll be seeing some posts on there asking for feedback. And what we're doing is just solidifying specifications for a bunch of new things that will hopefully go into 2.8. As usual, we are bound to a particular time for the release. So if things aren't done, they aren't done. But at least we'll have specifications and we'll know where we're going. So let me go through what they are. Now the first one here is long overdue gradebook improvements. The gradebook has not changed significantly since Moodle 1.9. It's had a number of incremental things, but I think most people agree the gradebook could use some improvement. There is a workshop in June, in a couple of weeks, in Long Beach, California. It was actually planned to be during the research moot, and it survived the research moot. So there's going to be maybe 20 people there working for 2 days, very hard, trying to come up with a spec for the new gradebook work. Probably as a series of smaller projects. There's two main goals for this. The first is to simplify interfaces for teachers and students to make the gradebook just look and work better and for people to understand it better. So some of that is actually just changing the terminology. Some of it will be quite serious changes to the interface to make it work better on mobile, to make it just less confusing and hide some of the complexity. The second thing that's there is about improving the communications between activities and the gradebook. So in Moodle now, there's kind of a situation that people don't always understand about how the data gets into the gradebook from, say, an assignment or from a forum. And that's more of a technical thing. And there is some specs already out there that we'll be looking at and be trying to put into a proper proposal. By the end of this meeting, there will be a draft spec which we'll get out to the community for further feedback. So it's not going to be final by any means, but hopefully we'll make a lot of progress on those 2 days. There's a question there from Tim: how will I guard against a US-centric bias to that meeting? Well, that is a big concern of mine. As you know, I held out from having grades over 100 for a very long time in the beginning, but that's something they require and they use every day. As an example, there is a lot of US people there, but if you look at, for example, the gradebook survey, 67% of the respondents have been from the US, and the US is the largest Moodle using country in pure numbers. It is massive. So, you know, Moodle is very highly used there. So of course we need to take all their opinions into account. And in fact, you know, they're the ones volunteering to do the work on this and engage in this this workshop. That said, though, you know, we will be putting this up. I want people from all countries to make sure these specs work for them, and I'll be there. There'll also be another Australian there. The University of Canberra is represented there. If anybody listening to this thinks they might be interested in coming to Long Beach for this on June 11, 12, get in touch with me because there's still room for a couple more people, and that'll be great. But I think most of the issues that we'll be getting to are relatively universal. You know, there's not a lot of US-centric stuff going on, so I wouldn't worry too much. Okay, the next thing on the list for 2.8 that we're working on is outcomes and competencies again. This was something we meant to try and do in 2.7, or actually in 2.6. Then it got pushed to 2.7. Now we're definitely back to it again in 2.8. The thing about it is it gets postponed because I really want the outcomes to work in the context of these other things that don't exist yet: learning plans, the workflow, org structure, and reporting that I mentioned before. But I think we're close to something there, and we'll be getting that in. So this is an improvement of outcomes to make it more granular, right down to activity level, and however, you know, I'm becoming less convinced that people really want that. A few people do, but you know, generally, if we could get outcomes working really well at a course level, it would actually be enough for 90% of people. However, this code already does go down to activity level. So, for example, for a particular activity, you can say it needs these outcomes, and you can actually grade against those outcomes, and activities, things that happen in that activity can also be seen in terms of outcomes. So that's that project. Another one which you may find interesting is the forum improvements. The forum has not significantly changed since Moodle 1.0. It's probably a good time for an update. There is some work done by Stuart Lamore at Moodle Rooms about making a more usable, accessible interface. That's a screenshot of it. We'll be looking at that and how it can be used in core to see how much of that we can bring in. Another one of the most frequently voted things in the tracker is to be able to subscribe to individual discussions. So that's already being mapped out. There's a spec for that. Anonymity is another one, which may get in. It's been held up before because we were looking at how to introduce anonymity for all activities at once. But we may not go into there because it's a big job and it holds everything up. Whereas we can actually just get anonymity quickly into forums, and it would actually be very useful. Yeah, it's old, Teresa. Grading also. Grading of forums is something, at the moment we have grades that are built of ratings, but it's not easy for a teacher to manually grade forum responses, and that's something a lot of people want. Another project being spec'd is overall navigation, and this is there was work done on this 8, 9, 10 months ago, even before. A lot of themers have tried this stuff, and it's time to get this stuff into core. Here are sort of the sub-projects, and in the spec, the plan is to make it like a roadmap as these smaller projects, and we'll do them one at a time. So however many we get done by 2.8, that'll be what 2.8 looks like. But at least we have a roadmap for where the overall navigation will go in the future, so everyone is aware. I haven't got screenshots here for you. There are mock-ups and demos, but I haven't got them here. You may remember seeing some of them on our prototypes site last year. But basically they are a user menu. So the first one is, well, you can see one on the iMoot site and on Moodle.org. The idea is you have a user menu that lets you see your own profile, that has your own user-based stuff, usually at the top right-hand corner of the page. That's a no-brainer. I don't think anyone objects to that. The overall goal of all of these is to actually remove those navigation and settings blocks as much as we can. Some while ago, we did try and push all that stuff into those blocks to make them in one place, but it doesn't work well on mobile. It's people complain there's complexity, and so basically what this is all about is eliminating those blocks and putting that stuff elsewhere where we can. We may not kill them completely, but we'll at least simplify them dramatically. So user menu I talked about. The user preferences page is something long talked about. So one page where a user can see all their preferences. Currently it's sort of mashed into your profile, and then not all the preferences are there. So it's unclear how to see all your preferences. One page is the idea. A new profile page is another thing that currently we have profile pages that are a bit confusing. They're not well laid out. It's not super clear why we have two profile pages to people, to users. You know, there is a course profile page, and then there's your main site profile page. I could explain all the reasons why that was done. It was part of a lot of other stuff, but that's mostly developer view, and I think it's not clear to users. The profile pages also should be, really just the view of things that other people should be seeing about you, and you should have a lot more control about it because it is your page. The next one there is improved My Moodle content. So when we came up with My Moodle, it was meant to be a dashboard page, and I was expecting lots of people to write really cool blocks for that page. and really take it somewhere. And as it happened, there's not too many blocks written for the My Moodle page. And it turns out it's quite hard to write new blocks that do anything really interesting because they have to query all kinds of other databases and it gets complicated. So we need to look at that. The next one is setting pages for modules and courses. So rather than having long hierarchical menus, we can put a lot of those settings pages as links, a lot of those settings things as links on one page, which makes it work better on all platforms, and less poking around inside a tiny settings menu. Same for reports, getting all the reports onto a page. And the last one is probably the most controversial one, but it's about sideways navigation, which is getting from one place in Moodle to another sideways. So if you're in an activity and you want to get to another activity, how do you do it? Currently, the navigation block is not particularly awesome in that regard, especially on mobile. Say you're in a course and you want to get to another of your courses. How do you jump sideways? Say you're in a category and you want to go to another category. So that sideways navigation, there's some nice ideas about slipping that into the nav bar at the top, the breadcrumbs, you probably call it, and that may be a project. But anyway, we'll look at the spec and we'll have some discussions about all that and see how that works. So, Stuart, I don't agree that's shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic. I mean, if you're using Moodle seriously on a mobile, it's not fun. It's not like using an app, and it should be like using an app. It should be. And, you know, we're not going to get there by making the navigation block ever more complex. We need to really do some serious thinking. And the idea here is to bring all these ideas together into one roadmap so that we can see the end result and people can understand where we're going. Because currently we are a little bit driven by designer whims. We have designers saying, oh, it should be like this, and we should add this and take away that. We have a number of little pieces, and the problem is that all those pieces have to fit together to make an understandable interface. And it's no good adding something like, for example, Gavin Henrik published this, Bass Brands, and Gavin Henrik made this a little add-on that lets you hide the blocks on the page and just zoom in on the content, which is cool. And there's tracker items about that as well. But these things all have to fit together with all the other pieces of navigation. Otherwise, we'll be perpetually in a mess. And I really think we have to get to a nice, organized place soon. So anyway, watch out for this project. It's a spec stage, and all these bits are at various stages of thought. Element library, this is more of a developer-y thing, but it really helps everybody. I kind of hate these things in a way because they take a lot of work, and end users will look at Moodle and go, what's changed? It looks the same. If we're going to do any of them, this is the one. Yeah, Tim says it's key. I agree. This is about making a definitive list of building blocks for developers to use for the interface. So HTML, JavaScript, CSS, all together as a block. And that means making new pages is mostly just like Lego, putting together these components. Now, Moodle already has several schemes within it that are heading in this direction. Even from the very, very first Moodle 1.0, there were functions to print headings, print blocks, print all sorts of things. But they've never been arranged properly in terms of bringing all these things together. And there's a lot of good thinking going on now around this. The idea is if we do that, we can have a report that lists all of those. And then if you're writing a new theme, you have one page to check, and you can just make sure all the little components display correctly and work correctly. And then the whole theme should work correctly right across Moodle. So that also helps developers build pages quickly. It helps users in the end because Moodle will look more consistent. We can make it look nicer, do more theme work, etc., etc. So that's that project. There's another project to add more logging. There's a lot of areas in Moodle that have no logging right now and no events. So if we're going to be using events properly, we need to have good coverage of all the parts of Moodle. And we're mapping that out now. There's still lots of places to work on yet. They're all mostly less important than the things we are logging now, but they're still, in the overall context, we have to do them. Writing it down, repositories for one. There's a lot of things. Now, event notifications, I was already telling you about the plans for events and logs is to allow us to build these analytics on top of it. So as an exercise, we are building a simple analytics tool that will look at active event data and respond to it. And the purpose of us doing this is that the people working on events can, A, test how events are working and make sure that events are actually usable and that they are useful and they can make real things out of it. And secondly, it'll identify areas where we need to create events sooner rather than later. So some of these gaps, give them a higher priority because they're going to be really useful for us to be logging those things. So this tool will be looking for patterns of activity, and they'll be defined by admins or teachers initially, and then later students maybe as well. Although that's a harder problem because we need to be very careful with data privacy and things like that. But initially, admins and teachers look for patterns. So a pattern might be, tell me when a forum has more than 10 posts in 30 minutes. So this is a really hot discussion going on in a forum somewhere. When that happens, it triggers an event itself. So an event gets fired, this has happened. And it can also notify someone. So the teacher can say, subscribe to that and say, yeah, when that happens in my course, I want to hear about it. And they'll get a message on their mobile app. So it'll come on their phone or their tablet. There's it's a very basic sort of first stab at this. It could evolve, or it could just help other people build more tools like this. But we're just using it internally to, as I said, test events. It also makes the whole events writing process a bit more fun for our developers because it's a grind, I can tell you, just writing hundreds of events all over Moodle. So it's something I really want to see myself. So looking at the questions now. Okay, so Guido said, will this help create things like a programmed autoresponder? Yes, it can. You could say, one of the actions you take on that are to, notify someone else, maybe not yourself, or we can obviously work on that. Tim asked, is this best done on an event model or a relational data model? Well, you look at the next slide about that because that's more about the static data. This is just purely looking at the active event data, and we're going to see how much we can get out of it. Other people may write reports that combine the two, but we're just seeing, for this one, it's kind of a bit of a proof of concept. And Gareth says, this is information gathering and not automated analysis. It is doing some analysis. There'll be patterns it's looking for. But, these will be definable by admins using a simple form. So, we'll see how it goes. We'll start simple and we'll build up on it. So that's something that will be stacked soon in the wiki. Gareth, okay, you're thinking about that sort of full automation. I don't see that as being something to replace the teacher in any way at all. This is something to inform the teacher. So it's about the teacher knowing about things. That's why I called it an event notification system primarily. It's just a higher level event, right? It's just saying, these patterns are going on. There's something here that's interesting, and saving you from going into the Moodle site physically and poking around. That's the main goal of that one. Right, so the next one is about a report builder. Now, this is an analytics tool for static data, and that's what Tim was talking about here. There already is plugins out there like Custom SQL that can query the databases directly. I think Tim, you also wrote something that does that. There's a couple of tools that do that, and that's fine. They exist. So I don't think we need to develop those. But in core, what we need is some notion of abstracting the data a bit, not giving people direct access to the raw data structures, but for each plugin to say, these are the important bits of data and that's how they relate to each other. So it exposes data structures, maybe combining some of the raw tables into virtual tables that we can access. But the idea is you have these source definitions that describe the data in each of the plugins. And then you have a central system that combines that data into reports. Now there already is a model for this in the report builder from Totara, and we're looking very closely at that. On balance, looking at everything, it seems to be the right sort of model. I'm not sure we're going to use it exactly, but it's the right kind of model. And it enables us to have report builders at the central location that can reach into all the plugins, pull out data, combine them in interesting ways, and do some statistics. It also could just be an API layer, so you could write a new type of plugin and access the data that way, and it will be more solid, more stable than accessing databases directly, because they change from version to version, whereas these would be more APIs and it would be a little more stable. It's still to see where this is going to go, but I think we really need this, and it's definitely got to happen soon. So, you know, at this point, I have to say I'm tending towards a report builder model, but we'll see how that works out. And last of all, I'm running out of time. Community editions, you know, there is a lot of, I've just talked about the things that Moodle HQ is working on, that we're working on, but we will always be integrating very highly voted features as we do every release, or any of these surprises that come in from the community. There are a lot of people out there working on cool stuff. Say conditional activities from Sam Marshall at the OU was one of those where, you know, they needed it at the OU. He worked on it. He talked about it openly. He really went through the whole process really well. Everyone knew what was happening in the community. A lot of people gave feedback to him on the spec. He talked to us developers, and it's you know, came out in the end of this really quite well polished, nice bit of functionality, which we were able to integrate with not too many troubles. So, you know, there's always those things, and they'll always come along, and that's the beauty of Moodle. So the actual, what will be in 2.8 in the end will remain a surprise until the last minute for all of us. But that's the good thing. I've got some time for any more questions. We had a lot along the way, but is there any other things we should talk about that you want to see?
Thanks very much, Martin. Teresa here. Just on behalf of the iMoot team, we'd like to thank you. I know everybody is always interested in hearing what's coming up with Moodle, and I think, you know, there's some awesome stuff in 2.7 that we're all itching to try. I know that it's, as an administrator of a site, it's hard to not immediately upgrade, but, you know, we have our process of waiting for the teaching to stop, and so of course we'll have any of our staff in here will be wanting me to just upgrade immediately. I think the conditional activities is fantastic, and I like how you've cleaned up the themes, and you know, some of those other improvements are awesome. Particularly, you know, the events and logging you've been talking about for a while, and the analytics. The move to that, you know, everyone needs analytics. Everyone gets off on reports, and managers love it, etc. So, no, good work. And good work to Moodle headquarters and all developers around the world. I think it's great. So we do have some time for questions. So if anybody wants to pop a question in the chat, or just let us know if you want your mic unmuted, or unmute yourself. Thanks again, Martin.
Cheers, Teresa. Well, to anyone who sees us later or wants to get in touch with me, probably the easiest way is through Twitter. You can always tweet me there on @Moodler, and I think I maybe got this hashtag wrong actually. It's 2014, isn't it? So I'll watch the hashtag for a while as well. Yeah, and you know, tweet me, get in touch. Very happy to. Got there's a lot of things on our plate and a lot of things to talk about, and I do like to hear from people who are thinking about them. Dorothy, government business focus. Well, yes. So a lot of those things that I talked about earlier, Dorothy, are about workplace learning, which is that, and that really is. That's something I believe should be in core. The things about outcomes and competencies, about reports, about organisational structures, you know, awareness of organisational structures and relationships between people. Those things are not too hard to add to Moodle. We should be adding them to Moodle core. So yeah, as I pointed out, a lot of our plans are around that too. Of course, they will work for every sector, not just workplace learning. Josh, Christina's asking about Jeremy Hopkins is asking future plans for the UI. Well, yep, I think I covered those. Josh, what happened to combining questionnaire, feedback survey, and choice? Well, that module is available. It's actually on Moodle.org plugins. We decided to put it into the plugins database for a while to let it cook before pushing it into core. There's quite a lot of issues around it. So if you want to have a look at that, you go to Moodle.org plugins, and the name is totally slipping my mind at the moment. I think it's called Collection. Yeah, Collection. It was going to replace Survey, but it's been renamed to Collection temporarily, so that you can install it alongside your other ones. What's next? Guido, I agree. More people with user experience folks would help Moodle development. The point of this spec that we have is to get that in front of some user UX people to reflect on. But the problem is with UX people working with nothing, no background, is that they can dream up any old thing. You know, they'll dream up a completely different thing, and getting to there from what Moodle is now is not always an easy process. You do have to build on the structure of software that we have, and so I think once we get this spec up, it's a bit of a roadmap for the next couple of releases. I really would like as many UX people to work on that as possible and refine it, criticize it, rebuild it, but at least we'll have a plan to criticize, if you see what I mean. What else we got? Let's push this up here. Yep. Yeah, Tim, I don't actually know if it got, I don't know where it is. I haven't seen it in there myself, the new survey module. I will find it after this and tweet it, okay? I know I was involved in conversations that it was going to happen, but I never saw it happen. So I haven't followed it really much lately. Gareth says, will Moodle 3.0 be a complete rewrite? Absolutely not. There will be a 3.0 though. We did kind of resolve that recently, that we would, from 2.9, there will be a 3.0. I actually think there will be some biggish features hitting about that time, which will make it quite nice to be at 3.0, even just for that reason. But no, basically we're not going to have a major rewrite anytime soon. We have a huge investment in the current framework, and lots of plans to make it modern and make it interesting still, without a complete rewrite. Any rewrites that happen will be probably called something else, not Moodle. Okay, I think I may begin to wind up. There's other sessions starting, so thank you very much all, and I'll take off. And thanks for coming along and hearing about where we're going. Thanks all. Thanks guys, cheers.
Thanks again, Martin. Enjoy the rest of your Moot, people. A few minutes for moving into the next session. But thanks again.
Thanks.